the surgery of, like I said, like it was something that I heard about even in my young years, but I just like, I'd never do that, But it wasn't until more recently that, I got fatty liver, high blood pressure, diabetes. My lab work came back right before the surgery that I had beginning stages of kidney failure, which is due to diabetes. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm only 43 years old, I have 4 kids, and it's like, I think had I not had kids at this time in my life, I don't know if I would have done it. I feel like now that I have the hardware, I got to work on the software. You know what I mean? So the intention there is to be around people who also have the same struggle. And, that's the software, man. That's the operating system. You know what I mean? Like I have the hardware. Now I already, I cut out my stomach. That's the hardware is done. So now the software needs to be updated.
Hey there, Health Feast listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the Health Feast. I'm back today with my good friend and co-host, Poe. Poe, how you doing?
What's going on, RAK? How's it going, everybody?
This is another episode of RAK, Your Potential. This is a series that Poe and I occasionally do. Get it? RAK, Your Potential. Yeah, the last one we did was a few months ago. It was actually you interviewing me. You interviewed me about, my journey with my wife's cancer diagnosis, and how I'd sort of been dealing with that and unpacking that. And that was really cool. And so we're back today for another RAK Your Potential. Today, I'm going to interview you, Poe. Excited about that?
Yeah. Well, considering, how patient you've been the last several weeks with me. Yeah. I mean, there was a few episodes that I missed just because I wasn't in the right space, the right mindset. When I am on the podcast with you, I want to make sure that I'm present and that I'm able to ask questions and, do our audience some justice by kind of, putting myself in their minds and like what, and what kind of questions and curiosity and bring that to the table. And the last several weeks, man, it's been
hard for you.
Really tough. Yeah. So
it's
great to be back on the pod and talking with you again.
Well, our listeners won't even notice right now because we're releasing this episode before some of the episodes that you haven't been able to take a part in. But yeah, that gives good context for why maybe over the next couple of months, you'll be a little less present in some of the episodes. Well, anyway, today we're going to kind of dive in a little bit into your health and your recent health journey. And before we get into a discussion about your recent surgery, Poe, you had bariatric surgery, which you're going to talk about. I wanted you to kind of just reflect on the past year. And, this all started with an injury, which you can talk about a year ago now. It's been a year.
Yeah. So yes, I sustained a job injury where I tore my patella tendon and I had surgery on my left knee. And then I also had surgery on my right wrist as part of this incident. I had carpal tunnel release surgery as well. And so for the last year, man, it's been probably one of the most challenging years of my life. I can't say this is the first injury I sustained on the job. I actually tore my Achilles tendon back in 2016. And so what I need to say, though, is that prior to 2016, I was very active. I'm talking like running 3 miles a day before work. And then, I was really active in my health. Like I was watching what I was eating. my whole lifestyle was different, And then when I sustained that injury in 2016, we did the non-operative method. We didn't the doctors recommended not getting surgery. And so I ended up, following that suggestion or that treatment. And, I've never was really the same after that injury, like as far as my, activity level, like I just didn't have a lot of confidence in my leg, my right leg anymore. And so I wasn't as active, which went into like this spiral of, depression. And then, eating became that's the one thing about me is that I'm not a big drinker or, what I mean? But food is definitely a place where I find a lot of solitude, a lot of comfort. And so I feel like food became one of my biggest sort of crutches at that time.
I hear that. Okay.
And then fast forwarding in, years later, sustaining another work injury, I was in a really dark place. Me and Rock talk about how, like during that time, I think we had even started the pod before the injury. So it was like, I was in this sort of place where I was trying to get my health back together, utilizing, help me with the help of Rock and, the plant-based eating. And so this was pre-injury
Right.
or last year.
Right. Right.
So I was getting back into the groove of things again. And then when the injury happened, it was just another hit. It's just like, I feel like that's how life is, man. Like you're always going to encounter a lot of challenges, in different things.
It kind of derailed you, like in some ways. I mean, not completely, but like it definitely took you off. I mean, threw you off because that was a big injury. It wasn't in, I don't know. We don't have to get into all the details, but it was a sort of a road to getting surgery and then getting rehab for your knee and all the kind of things around that. So that was, I know we were talking so much about it, like really stressful for you, but I really want to focus today then on like, take us to your more recent surgery and kind of share a little bit about, your decision to get bariatric surgery.
Yeah. So the decision to do the bariatric surgery it started in 2016, actually, when my first injury, because it was such a shocker for me to go from being active. And then like for almost 10 months, I was out, like I couldn't run, I couldn't do anything. And so, the surgery, it was on my mind, but I was like, no, I can still do it, because I felt like I can recover from it, and what I found was just, it was a lot harder, so, and then, you get back into your routine and then all of a sudden you're no longer thinking about the surgery. You're thinking, you're in life and you're kind of not really thinking about, the tool like surgery. And then in 2020, I decided, I think I was looking at it again and I can't remember exactly what was going on in my life at that time. And the reason why I know that is because the more recently, before the surgery, I actually met with the same psychiatrist. And for people that don't know, when you do the bariatric surgery, they put you through a set of processes where you go through, you see a dietitian and you see a psychiatrist. And they kind of just make sure that you're ready and that you are informed about what the surgery is and what they're going to do. And then as of right now, the medical provider that I go through, which is Kaiser, they offer the bariatric sleeve, and then they have, which is one operation, and then there's the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, and I ended up getting the gastric bypass. So in 2020, I had gotten to the point where I was almost like I had a date, and the same psychiatrist that I saw then saw me again a few months ago and was like, "What happened? Why didn't you get the surgery then?" And I was like, there was still that part of me that was like, "No, I can do it," and I kind of chickened out the last minute. Because I feel like a lot of that just comes from, for any of people that were even people that were not athletes, but I feel like that sort of competitiveness athlete in me was like, nah, there's a lot of stigma around like, this is you giving up by doing the surgery. I mean, I suffered from it then. And even up until this last time, I was like, man, I really had to think about and sit and sort of meditate and kind of ask myself, like, if this is something I want to do.
First, I hear you've been waiting. You thought about getting the surgery back from your last injury, which is in 2016. So like, we're really talking about 8 years when you first thought about it. I know when we first met a couple of years ago, that was one of the first things you told me. Like, you said, I have contemplated for the last several years getting, not just contemplated, you like had done the initial steps and met with people and yeah, there was something about that. I remember you saying, or like the kind of way you put it was like you that maybe felt like you were giving up.
Yeah.
That's what you said. Yeah.
Or almost like there's like an easy way out. You know what I mean? Like there's that sort of mind that like I said, there's that idea, and I don't know if it was just me that suffered from that or if there are other people that suffer from that. But I know for me, I was like, it's like an easy way out. And let me say, like, after it's not an easy way out because it's extremely difficult. Like as of right now, I'm in a all liquid stage. I had the
Yeah.
surgery literally a week ago.
Well, Poe, before I want to hear about that, but before you get to that, move back a bit. Can you share your decision making? Like, obviously, this comes being overweight, being
Yeah.
like having obesity, and like, I'm curious myself. I'm sure our listeners are like, what was your life like at your heaviest? Like, what has that been like physically and emotionally? And because I'm imagining that all plays into this decision.
Yes, 100%. So I think the heaviest I've ever been was probably 420 pounds, I think was the heaviest I've ever been. And life then was uncomfortable. Like clothes don't fit. You're kind of always aware of your surroundings. I mean, I was a very conscious, overweight person. There's some people who are just not, who are overweight, but just they don't care, but me, I was very subconscious and conscious sort of like about my size. And, I don't know where that stems from, but, I feel like it was just words to describe. It was very uncomfortable, and also very limiting. I mean, even at the time, I spoke about this before about, and I think me and we talk about it. It's like, when you're that size, people sort of typecast you for certain things, So for a long time, even types of jobs that I would get would always be for bigger people. I was been bouncer for so many years, then security for so many years. And sort of, you just fall into this, like, this sort of this role or this box that you got to be in for the rest of your life, And so, and then even when after having kids, like you have kids and, since I started having kids, man, that's one of the biggest things. Like, I just don't want them to have the same problems or the same issues with weight and health. And, and for the better part of like maybe close to like, I don't know, 13 years now is when I really started opening up my mind about health, because I feel like for a long time when I was a younger person, I was always a big person in my, and even in my younger years, but I just never was really ignorant when it came to like food choices and calories and, working out and
Yeah.
being active. Like, I think my exposure to that was like sports, and in the sports, the positions I played were for bigger people. So it was like catered towards being a big person. You know what I mean? So you kind of found comfort being amongst other big guys. So you just sort of like,
yeah, it's kind of encouraged. It's actually like
yeah,
at the post game, they're like, "Oh yeah, get him an extra slab of ribs."
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then what happens is after high school, your social groups become other people that are big, that are into the same thing. So it's like, and then so you just live this life of like, man, like, and at some point it catches up to you. So that's when really like this sort of idea around surgery started happening. And so was like, well, that's what being overweight and obese did to me for so many years. And with the surgery, of like I said, like it was something that I heard about even in my young years, but I just like, I'd never do that, But it wasn't until more recently that, I got fatty liver, high blood pressure, diabetes. What else is there that I had? I mean, I think we talked about, my lab work came back right before the surgery that I had beginning stages of kidney failure, which is due to diabetes. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm only 43 years old, like I have 4 kids, and it's like, I think had I not had kids at this time in my life, I don't know if I would have done it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like hearing that there's a separateness between like, for many years, like you wanted to lose weight and you've tried many things and then you came to a conclusion more recently, I think when we met, where you were like, you know what, now I want to focus on my health.
Yeah.
And you really had this concerted effort to change your lifestyle, and weight loss is still a goal, but in so much as like, it really helps you promotes your best health. And what you're describing now, fatty liver and diabetes and high blood pressure and the consequences
Yes.
of your health and your excess weight. And so I think I mean, we had so many conversations, Poe, and I think your decision, you wanted you to reflect on this, really came down to that, was like, I need to do this for my health. And and just like, it's interesting what you just said. It's just like, if I was single and alone, I wouldn't have done this, because to talk about that.
Well, because I feel like, well, so up until I decided to go through with this, it was a struggle because I was like, man, I was struggling with the fact that this is such a permanent thing, like you're altering your body, you know, higher power didn't design me the way that I'm about to alter it myself, And so I struggle with that. And that's why I'm thinking like, my kids, they're going to get older. They're going to have families and I want to be around for that, and had I
Mm,
understood if I didn't, cause it's almost like a selfishly unselfish thing to do. You know what I mean? Cause
mm,
it's like, I'm doing it to myself, but at the same time, while I'm doing it, I needed the external like thing. Like I needed to look at like the reasons why, and it's not within me because I got me where I'm at. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so my
Well,
kids,
you got you where you at, but this is I think really important point. Like, you struggle with binge eating
oh yeah,
and emotional eating.
yeah,
And so what got you where you're at is like eating in excess and probably not eating the right foods in excess, and doing that repeatedly over many years. And it's not through a lack of trying to change that. I don't know, many people who have tried as hard as you have,
yeah,
Poe, and you've done a lot of things and you're constantly trying. And so to many people, this can seem quite extreme, the surgery you had. So you ended up going with the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. That's where they basically remove your whole stomach,
yeah. They bypass
right?
your stomach
They bypass your whole stomach.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about that because maybe some people might not understand the difference between a sleeve and a bypass, and I had to learn
Sure.
this. So like essentially, they are bypassing your stomach, leaving you with like an egg-sized pouch. So from
Mm.
your esophagus, I mean, you could probably do better with the anatomy, but I'm sure like once your esophagus turns into it goes into your stomach. Well, they essentially just remove all of the stomach and reattach it to your lower intestine. But your stomach is still in you. Okay. That's a key factor. Like it's still within my body and it still functions, like it still builds acid and all that. But the food is no longer going in there. It's going into this little pouch and then going right into my lower
Mm.
intestine to process. So
And then the
malabsorption
idea,
is
now you get full, like, I mean, the idea is after someone has the surgery, they really have no space in their stomach. So you
yeah.
can't eat very much. It's not possible. Some people do eat and they eat and it's painful, and
Yeah, they can stretch it. Both surgeries can stretch. So like the gastric sleeve is they move 80% of your stomach. You have your stomach, but they remove 80% and they leave you with like a banana sized pouch. But they actually remove the other 80% out of your cavity, your inside your stomach, your abdominal cavity. They remove it out. So can you gain weight for both surgeries? Yes. I don't want
mm,
people to think that, oh, it's like the answer because it's not. I don't look at it as the answer.
yeah,
It's a legitimate tool
yeah.
for those who are, for me, it's like, I know what it's like to lose weight and to run, to be active and all that stuff. And I know what it's like to eat, certain amounts a day, portion size and all that. Just feel like, the injuries, I didn't speak about that. The
Yeah.
injuries are another reason why I decided to go with this because I learned from 2016 that I was never able to get back to how I was.
Mm,
I wasn't. I don't think I haven't ran 3 miles ever. And since 2016, since I tore my Achilles. So knowing how my activity level has like drastically gone down, that fed into like, okay, what are the pros and cons of like doing it now? 43, all the health issues are coming back, even after going plant-based. And I don't think if plant-based was a failure. For me, I feel
no,
like
definitely not.
the
The
injury
injury was a big setback
was
for you.
big, like 100% one of the biggest reasons why I feel like, you know what, I feel like this would be an added tool, like a
Yeah.
positive thing for me.
What I said to you, I still contend this to be true, is that, the people who do best after a surgery like this are the ones who do the best after any surgery, the ones that have their other lifestyle habits dialed in. And so I know that's your intention, is to do really well. That's why you had this surgery, because you
Yeah.
want to improve your health. And improving your health, this is like you said, this is one big step in doing that. You said something to me also really interesting, like a few days before when we were talking. You reminded me that I lock up, and I still do this. I lock up my fridge every night. I put a locker. I've shared, I think, on the podcast in the past. If anyone, it's an older
Yeah.
episode, but I do that because I have this bad habit I developed over many years, like from just being up all night and training in medical school and residency and having kids, where I'll eat in the middle of the night. And so now I don't have a choice. Like, I can't do that. I put a combo lock that everyone in the family knows the combination except me. And I can't get in. And there's a key in there as well. And the key opens the pantry. So I can't get in the pantry either. Now, some people would say that's extreme. I tell people I lock up my food at night so I don't have access to it.
I don't know if I could do that. Like,
Well,
I
but hey, okay. So we were talking, and you were like, you lock up your food. That's extreme. And you're like, I'm thinking about that for my surgery. Like, it's a way of controlling my environment. I mean, just talk about that a little bit. Cause I mean, and it is a, it's not something most people are going to do, but
you found that works for you to change that habit. And I feel like that's how I view. Listen, I'm not on here to promote this by any means. Like, it's not something that I'm here saying, hey, everybody else. No. If you're obese, you should go get after it. No, because this was a hard.
You're bringing bariatric surgery to the health feast. Is that the takeaway from now?
I'm hoping not. I'm hoping.
No, right.
Yeah, I'm sharing what this is my experience in my obesity, man. Like, this is how I have to deal with it. And like, you lock up your drawer, or, your fridge and your cabinets. Like, that's another way of looking at why I did the gastric bypasses. I feel like it's locking away that part of me that I need the most assistance with. Like, I need the most help around the food. And I'm not just doing that. Like, part of my mission too now is like, I'm going to support groups for food addicts. So that's that's like the warranty, right? Is that I'm working on the feelings that I have around food, because no matter what, man, because I'm not an alcoholic or a pill popper or anything, I'm always going to be someone who's thinking about food. That's just like in my nature. Like, that's something that I was born with. Like, how do I know that? Because I was obese for almost all my life and still am. I mean, I'm not down to my goal weight yet. I haven't lost. I mean, in the last few, days I've lost, but actually I had to lose quite a bit of weight just to even have the surgery. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, so, like, you lock up, and people have their measures. Like, there's a lot of people that you're not the only one that has extreme measures that people
do things. Sure.
Food Addicts Anonymous. I don't know if you're familiar with that group, but
Well, I know. And you've shared FA with me. FA, you're eating a certain measurement.
Weight and measured food. Yeah.
Food for everything. Yeah.
No sugar or flour.
And you don't stray, right. And you don't stray away from that. Well, yeah. What is your intention for kind of engaging with food addicts?
I feel like now that I have the hardware, I got to work on the software. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's a personal developing thing for me to be part of these groups. The intention there is to be around people who also have the same struggle. And, that's the software, man. That's the operating system. You know what I mean? Like, I have the hardware. Now I already, I cut out my stomach. That's the hardware is done. So now the software needs to be updated. You know what I mean? So the intention around going there is like making it, like, I have visions of it being like a plant-based version of that program. You know what I mean? We're not eating mostly vegetables and, getting my protein from, beans and lentils and so that's what I can foresee myself doing.
Yeah.
Now, obviously it's going to take a lot of work, and I'm in the phase where I'm not eating food yet because I'm still fresh out the surgery last week. So I'm just trying to dial in like what that new habits are going to look like when I go into food. And if I can get all that worked out now, then once I introduce hard, foods, then I can go right into like, eating the protein and the.
Don, that's really interesting, Poe. Yeah, I love how you said that this was kind of, a changing the hardware, and now you got to work on changing the software.
Yes.
And the software, is constantly updating, right?
Yes.
So we never lose sight of our software, because ultimately those are the programs that are running. Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So you made the decision, and I also wanted you to reflect on this, because like once you made the decision, and I remember we talking about it, and now you've had the surgery too, like there's almost like a sense of relief that you had, is what I would say. Would you agree with that?
I 100% agree with that. Take it back to the same analogy of the hardware. Like, can you imagine not having the same capacity to store? Well, that's actually not a good one because we're talking about storing and memory and stuff. But I guess knowing that I have another fall safe or firewall, you know what I mean? Like to know that like my body will not physically be able to eat the way that I used to. Like it'll come back up, I like that. I felt, that's not the main reason why, but I just felt like, man, like something, that was a big decision that I had to make for myself. And leading up to it, I remember I would call you and be like, man, I'm like, cause that's how I was feeling. I was like, dude, am I making the right decision? Then finally was like, no, like you want to be around. I had this conversation with myself, like, you got 4 kids, and my wife has made it very clear. And which kind of takes me back to your experience with your wife having cancer. Like, obviously they're not the same, but could you imagine raising your kids by yourself?
Yeah, I did imagine it, and it was like heartbreking and so sad for me. Yeah, so I hear you. Yeah, I hear your wife.
Yeah, like my wife was like, I have 4 kids, man, and we still got a 5-year-old. Like, so that's why I had to become like a selfless thing, because I'm like, is it selfish for me to say no? I think I can still do it, even though I've been saying that for years. Like, I can do it, and it's okay to be like, you know what? I might not be able to do it. And I think just that was okay. Like, it kind of like made me feel better, like to like say to myself.
It's almost like a frame shift. Like, not that I can't do it, but just like, this is how I'm going to do it. And not everyone needs this surgery. Not everyone gets this surgery. But for me, this is going to be a powerful tool in my journey to better health.
Moving forward. Yeah.
Moving forward.
And that's exactly what it is. It's, you're right. It wasn't necessarily like, I don't want it to be like it's something that was negative, because in the thought of like, this is for my kids. Like, this is really, I'm 100%. Yes, it's for me. Like, it's going to be for me, but it's also going to be for them. And I just feel like leading up to that day of surgery, my wife was like, I was like, man, just think about all the years I'm going to get back. But it was interesting too, because it was like this sort of peace. Like, as the day get closer, I wasn't like tormented about it. But as it got closer and closer, I became more and more solid in that decision,
Yeah.
And,
well, let's talk. What was you don't have to get into the experience of the surgery, but like, you did spend a night in the hospital, and then I think and then the next day was your birthday.
Yeah. For some reason it was really weird, because I was like, it's the surgery's the 18th. My birthday's the 19th. And I kept thinking, man, that's kind of a cool birthday present, right? You wake up and you got this new stomach, this new hardware you got now, right? And, you're always scared going into any surgery because, anything can happen. We were talking about some of the risks that you've experienced with a friend of yours. And I was like, oh man, that was scary. This was something that needs to be done. Like as it got closer, I was more and more stronger. And I was like, I got to do it no matter what, because I know that this is going to benefit not only me, but it's going to benefit my kids. But I think it benefiting my kids was what pushed me over. That's what really got me over, was like, nah, this is, I'm going into this for my kids. Like, I want to be around. Like, that's what was in my mind. So yeah, it was which instant. Cause like the surgery was like, I think it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I woke up like they got me out of surgery. I was like, and I was kind of groggy from the anesthesia. And then I fell back to sleep. And then like on my birthday at like 4 a.m., I popped up and the nurse like, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Your shift changes like at 6 o'clock. And like, oh, Lady, you okay, Mr. Lady? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. I was walking up and down the hallway. Everybody was still asleep, but I was just like, I just felt like I made a good decision for myself. Like it was like I didn't have any like buyer's remorse or, oh, I regret this. Like I just felt like good about like what I decided. I mean, I was in pain. I had all the gas pain and stuff, but I was like, man, I just didn't feel at all like I made the wrong decision. I felt like this was what was supposed to happen. Like I felt like this is because even leading up to the surgery as well, like when I talked to the doctor a few months ago, he was like, yeah, I need you to get down to like, 347, I think was the weight. And this time last year, I was going through my phones, how you take photos of how much you weigh and stuff. I was at 370 this time last year. So I got down to on surgery. I got down to 345, but surgery, I pulled in at 350 because of the water and stuff. And as of this morning, I'm at 332. So, the weight is just been sort of coming off, obviously I'm on liquids, but I have these bursts of energy like now that I've never had in quite some time. And some of this sweater, I haven't worn this sweater in like years. I've had it in my closet and now it fits. Like there's clothes up there that I'm putting on like, oh my gosh. Like, so I'm seeing the results instantly.
Quickly. Yeah. You're seeing some results. I hear that. I'm curious, like, because you've mentioned it to me, and maybe this is something we could talk about, is food noise. And so food noise is something that you've struggled. Well, how would you, maybe we should define it for the listeners. How would you define it?
Cravings.
Okay.
Like, you're thinking of something either you saw scrolling on social media or you saw a commercial of it on TV and you're like, oh, then it stays in your mind until you have it. Right. Until you
can't get it out of your head.
Right. That's a part of food noise.
Thinking about it's just like, it's just the kind of constant. Well, one, you pointed out that there is a constant barrage from society about food.
Oh yeah.
Like unlike other addictions, and I want to be clear about the word addiction too, because, not everybody, I mean, we talk about how food is like processed food is addictive. Not everyone has a food addiction. Really, the term addiction is when, there's continued sustained use despite adverse consequences. And, that fits some people to have like an actual addiction to food. I think you would agree like that was the case for you, probably still is the case for you. And I think food noise is part of it.
Well, I think there's different like levels. I don't know if that's a good word to use, but like, there's some people there are some people that go in their lives. My wife is a good example. She doesn't think about food. I mean, she'll eat, but it's like, it's not
on her mind all the time.
Yeah.
I think I have food noise. So, cause the other thing that comes up when you read about food noise is it's like this, like thinking about like what you should eat or shouldn't eat or internal debates about food choices, right? Or kind of even all the information about different diets and nutritional information, and then just like judging all the things you're eating. Like, I think that's all part of this.
Yeah. And in people that know that there is like the people that will, and this is something that I have done too from experience, but like you'll go to different fast food places to get different things because you want to eat all of them.
I've done that. Yeah. I used to do that. Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, I used to do that.
Now,
pretty regularly.
That's a level of addiction, right? Because like the normal person, like, okay, I don't want to use the term normal because
most people don't do that. Most people don't do that.
Go to like one place.
Yeah, my wife would never do. But I think a lot of people struggle with that. I think a lot of people suffer and struggle with that in silence because that's what I would do. I would do that in my car, and I would go pick up the stuff and eat it in my car and just throw away the wrappers and things like that. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, Poe. I mean, you
It's
know,
hard because a lot of people want to label it like, well, how is that an addiction? Because, you usually use addiction with like drugs, right? Alcohol.
right.
You're thinking those are addictions, right? But
But, refined flour, refined sugar, they are drugs. That is a drug.
yeah,
And that is a drug. And, salt and saturated fat are also very pleasurable.
yeah. I mean,
So when you,
studies are out now, right? It stimulates
yeah,
part of your brain that, was it
Yeah.
sugar? They did a study on sugar in mice and how it just lights up like it's cocaine or something like that. Like,
listen, Poe, they have one group of mice who have access to sugar and one group of mice that has access to cocaine. And at some point, the cocaine mice stop pushing the lever. Like they're like, I've had enough. The mice who are pushing the sugar lever, they never stop.
that's interesting. Very true, man.
So how has food noise changed as a result of the surgery?
Um,
Or has it? Well, I mean,
It
in the
has.
short term, yeah,
Well, I noticed that right away. Like I couldn't finish, so they give you these trays that you got to be on a clear liquids diet. And that's just so that your pouch can heal and you don't have any leaking is what they call it, I guess. But I just noticed right away, like I didn't have any cravings for any types of food. I think that's just you're coming out of anesthesia and you're kind of like, groggy a little bit. But even after I left the hospital and I've been at home, like I haven't had any real, I think it's starting to happen because I'm like, the healing is getting done. And I'm starting to feel like, man, I can't wait to have a meal, like where I can eat. And what's interesting is like anything like fruits, we have fruits here. I'm like, man, that looks really good to have like, a banana or something like that. But it's not the same that like before I was craving, just all kinds of different foods.
like junk.
Like junk food, yeah. And
junk.
now I'm more craving like health foods, like healthy over like vegetables and like, like I said, fruits like avocado, like they're all sitting right here and I'm looking at it like, man, I can't wait to be able to
What's interesting to me is how this surgery, has had this impact on your mindset and has created like a mental shift for you. Because I've noticed that even after you got to the point where you were like decided I'm going to do this and really dead set on it and move forward with it, like there's this optimism and now stronger belief that
Yeah, and I think the added, like I was talking about, the hardware has changed. You know what I mean? That also gives you some confidence. And even thinking like how people might say, oh, it's the easy way. It's not. It's hard, man. To make that decision was a really hard decision for me. Like it wasn't an easy decision, and I think I needed to have my kids in my mind to be able to be like, I'm also doing it for them. This is not just for me.
that's one of the things I said to you. I said, this is not going to make your life easier. This is going to make your life harder. Like this adds a whole new dimension to like how you think about your health and how you have to eat certain, small meals and vitamin supplementation. And we're not going to get into all of that, but like that becomes
Your life.
part of you now. Yeah. That becomes a big part of your life now. Yeah.
Already I've noticed like, I'm way more active. I mean, in the way that like now I want to get stuff done. You know what I mean? Like, whereas before I was more like, I wasn't as active, but I just feel like I can feel the energy coming through me. Like, I feel like I don't know. It's weird. I can compare it to like, when you're fasting.
You're kind of going into ketosis and
ketosis. There you go.
Yeah.
Burning that fat because I feel like that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm on this long fast, right now, especially with the liquids. But yeah, I was telling my wife, I was like, man, I gotta have a lot more energy instantly. Like, and it's exciting because like, my goal within a year is I want to be able to run. Like I want to be, even after all my injuries, like I'm still dealing with rehab and, I'm still having the little side pains that I have on my knees, but it's not like it was before the surgery. Now, granted, it's only been 5 days or 7 days. And so like now it's like, I'm kind of like starting to visualize what can be more, especially after, seeing, I'm just more excited about it. Like I didn't realize how excited I was going to be until after. Cause leading up to it, you're like, oh my gosh, like you're thinking of restrictions, and all the different things. Like, what, my vitamins isn't that bad. Like, get up in the morning, I check my blood sugar and I take my vitamins. It's not really,
Yeah.
and I wasn't a vitamin taker before, like now I am. And it's like, was it that bad? Not that,
Right.
So, but yeah.
Well, so let's kind of get to your hopes and goals for the future. Like you mentioned, in a year you want to get back to running. That's really, have you thought about other things that I mean, obviously like your health conditions, you're thinking about those and watching those and hoping to see improvement from those.
Right. I feel like the visual goal of being able to run like 3K or a 5K again, I think that goal is backed by making sure that I'm, eating right, eating to what my new stomach requires, because we know that people have gained the weight. And that was another fear, And so that's why I'm like, I need to install different programs into this body so that I know like it's going to keep the hardware up. You know what I'm saying? Like I need to make sure like, okay, if the goal is to be able to run a 5K, then also, we talked about I've never done like a Tough Mudder or any of those obstacle.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time, Paul.
Yeah.
You're going to do it with me.
Right.
Next year, you're going to do it with me?
Like if I'm able to do this, I'm doing it. And, like I'm already starting to have like these different programs, like the habits that I want to start, practicing now. One of the biggest things, I talked to a couple of my friends about it, or my cousins, like, man, I really want to do jujitsu. Like that's something that I've always wanted to do, but being in a bigger size body, it's hard. You can't, 300 pounds, 350 pounds, you're rolling around. I like, that's uncomfortable for not me, but also the other person. You know what I mean? This big 300 pounder trying to do jujitsu. That's like, but that's like another thing I want to do. I want to learn jujitsu. You know what I'm saying? So these are the types of things that I'm looking forward to, that, that I'm kind of like, all right, just take it day by day and sort of nurturing these new habits.
Yeah. I hear that. And the health feast is, I think, an integral part of helping you nurture those new habits.
100%. I think this is part, like being on the pod and being a co-host to you and just meeting all the wonderful people that we've met and just learning from everybody. It's like, there's this whole new world of like healthy living and healthy lifestyle that I'm like learning from all the guests that we've had coming on here, and
well, we've had recent, we've had recent increase in our listenership, and thank you all for listening, seriously. And please subscribe and leave a review. If you love our show, please leave a 5-star review where you listen. But I will say that just to say that some people may not have gone back and listened to some of our earlier episodes, but really this show came out of our conversations, Poe, right? Like we would have conversations like this about your health, about, your struggle. And there was a moment one day where you said, I think lots of people would benefit from hearing these conversations. I think lots of people struggle with this. And in that moment, I was like, absolutely. Yes. Like it was getting chills, because I was like, yeah, that's it. So anyway, this episode is kind of bringing us back to our roots.
Yeah.
In that way.
Yeah. And it's like this evolution of it, like it's also the changing of everything and kind of working, because the health feast is different for everybody. You know what I mean? Like
that's
it's all about it's feasting on what's healthy for you, but it could change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it can adapt and it can sort of recreate itself as it moves forward, But the foundation of it was the fact that we would have these conversations, and we still have these conversations, by the way. We still call each other and we talk about what's going on
all the time. That's right.
But,
that's right. So Poe, like we ask our guests one final question. Do you know what we ask? Poe's coming to the proverbial health feast, and instead of a dish, you're bringing your mindset tip or life philosophy, and it could be related to this recent experience or not. What are you bringing to our health feast?
I'm glad you asked that, because I think this time in this space. I don't know if it's a philosophy, but I know like there's many different ways to get to the top of the mountain. You know what I mean? Like you think it's going to go this trail
Mm,
and it ends up a totally different route that you get to
mm,
the top. So I think, to be honest, if you would ask me 10 years ago that I'd have this surgery now and today, probably would have told you no. I don't think I would have ever done it, you know? So now that I've done it, it's like, man, I'm glad that I had this trail. Like I'm glad that this was an option for me because now I feel like I'm better off for it. So guess that's saying there's many different routes to
mm,
your goals.
mm,
You know, like it doesn't have to look a certain way because I thought it's supposed to look a certain way. And I was going to stand my ground with it. And that detriment that I was able to let that go, because what if I just said, nah, I'm never going to get it. And then I end up with all these health issues and then end up
mm,
leaving this earth early. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like that could have
mm.
happened, but now, and it still can. I mean, being honest, right? But now it's like, it's that extreme. I went to this extreme. So now what can I do now moving forward to keep it and keep my promise of being around longer for my kids? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's
Ah,
my that's what I'm bringing. I don't know if that's a, I
I
don't know if
love
it's
it. No, I love
philosophy or
it.
what.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
it's a,
learning now. It's like, man,
it's also, I think it's a testament to your resilience because you're like, I'm going to figure this out. And this is a challenge. Your health, like you've told me and our listeners many times, is the biggest challenge you've ever faced,
yeah,
and figuring it out. And this is part of your journey in figuring it out. And of course, I'm here with you, but we're all here with you, Poe.
yeah, and I
We all
appreciate
love
the
you.
support.
All right.
Yeah.
You know that.
Hey, I did some video recordings. Maybe we'll talk about how I can share them with you, and then we'll see the progression. Because I mean, every month or week
Yeah.
we're going to be
Oh,
talking,
yeah.
and
We're going to
then
be following.
it's
Yeah.
going to
We're going to
be
be following
this
you.
is after, this is post surgery Poe. Let's see what happens. Like 12 months down the line, I might be the same frame as you.
Yeah. Maybe. Maybe. And you'll be helping me get over those obstacles on the Spartan course next year. Yeah. All right, Poe. I love you. I
Love
really
you, brother.
appreciate
Appreciate it,
you. I
man.
appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate this space that we create together. And yeah, we appreciate all of you, our listeners. And anything else you want to say to them before we wrap up, my friend?
No, thank you for listening, and I appreciate hearing. Rock's been keeping me updated, like how we're slowly getting some viewerships and downloads. I'm like, man, that's pretty awesome. Shout out to
Yeah.
Rock, man. This guy is constantly, working hard to figure out how to bring great content of sharing his passion, and I really appreciate having him in my life. So,
Hmm. Aw. Thanks, man. That means a lot. Okay, let's do a fist bump. Yeah, all right. All right. All right. We'll
boom.
check. All right. We'll check you all next time at the Health Beast. Until then, live well and rock on, everybody.